And welcome back, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover Podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King. I am joined today by Christian Clemente and Jason Caldwell for what is one of my favorite episodes of the year. Always a fun time to do our roster draft, of course, in the spirit of the NFL draft week. We will be drafting Auburn's roster. The premise is pretty simple. Our pool of available players is Auburn's current 2024 roster. And all guys are fair game. Anyone who shows up for a summer enrollee, freshman, those guys you can get. Even the transfer defensive lineman that jumped on board today, you guys are welcome to those guys. So anyone who's on the roster currently. Me and Christian joke that maybe we should penalize if a guy gets transferred off your roster, maybe you lose some points. But yeah, so we like every year we'll put our teams together, and we'll do that over the course of the show, and then. As you guys listen to this here on Tuesday, you can head over to auburnundercover.com and vote. The results from last year are that Christian won pretty handily. You had a pretty solid team here, Christian. Peyton Thorne, Jeremiah Cobb, bunch of good on last year's draft, according to our subscriber vote. Jason finished second place, and then I unfortunately finished. I think I finished last place both times. So that's unfortunate. So nice. Christian will get first pick, and then Jason will get second pick, and I'll go third. Before we get started, though, guys, with the fun stuff, it turned into a really big day for Auburn here on Monday in terms of the transfer portal. I ended up getting 3 transfer guys in the boat here on Monday. Jason, we knew that the defensive front was going to be a really big priority for this team, and with these 3 guys that they picked up, I mean, they can bounce around a few different positions here, but they pretty much picked up 3 different guys in terms of the skill sets they bring to the table, and in terms of kind of the niches that they fill for this roster next season. We don't expect them to be done by any means in the portal, but this was a really, really big day for them to say, hey, let's get a bunch of the guys that we want along the defensive line, because we knew all along that was going to be their biggest position of need here in the portal.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal when you start talking about a Christian that has been on top of this from the get-go, and we talked really since the middle of spring that this was going to be defensive line, a focal point, interior defensive line, try to get a balance, and they've done exactly what they wanted to do. They got a true 3 technique in Bleedy, guy that can slide inside if he needs to. And play the nose some, but he's more of a classic 3 technique defensive tackle. Then you get your big nose tackle in Isaiah Rakes to go along with Jason Jones and those guys in the middle. Then you need another bigger body guy. And you had your pass rusher this afternoon. Honestly, Christian had a chance to see him, and physically, this is an impressive looking guy when you look at him.
Yes.
On the hoof. I mean, like, he's 6.5 sacks last year, I think, at Arkansas State.
5.5, I think, yeah.
5.5, but not a guy that's played a ton of football. Was a basketball guy. I think a ton of upside. And so you start talking about middle, nose, tackle, pass rusher. They have done exactly what they needed to do. Is there a Derek Brown or a D Ford on this roster? Maybe not. Well, Jalen McLeod could be a D Ford kind of guy. He could have a year like that. You don't have a guy maybe that's a Derek Brown type, but there are not many of those guys running around anyway. But what you've done is you've made yourself better. And we talked about that from the get-go. What's the most important thing right now? You better be trying to improve your roster at every turn. And they have done that since even the end of spring practice with these additions.
Yeah, Jason, I mean, you mentioned Kieron Crawford's frame. Ran into Keldrick Falk and was just talking with him a little bit today, and was saying, get a good edge guy there who could also play the 5 in Kieron Crawford. And I was saying, 6'4", about 245, and he's like, he's 245. I was like, yeah. He's like, he looks like he's about 270. He carries it incredibly, incredibly well. He's very built. A guy that Auburn really, really, really liked. Obviously has the connection there going to the high school there in Memphis that Hugh Freeze previously coached at. So that was a really strong connection for Auburn. As soon as he entered the portal, Jason, that was one that we reported on quickly, said, hey, watch out for this guy. Sure enough, he visits over the weekend, ends up signing on Monday before his visit is even wrapped up on Tuesday, and getting the chance to talk with him. He said, look, going into the visit, I kind of knew that this is where I wanted to be. I just wanted some more confirmation He got that, and he ends up signing. Quality addition there for the room, a guy that can play the buck, play the five a little bit, helps out Jalen McLeod, helps out Keldrick Falk, a guy that you really got to like. And then, I mean, we've talked about the other two interior defensive linemen. We talked about them on the War Eagle Wake Up that we recorded on Sunday night, Jason. There weren't really any Walter Nolans, huge, big name defensive linemen in the spring portal. There just weren't those guys out there. There were a bunch of quality guys, and Auburn gets two of the top quality guys out there for a position that everybody was looking for. So if you're an Auburn fan, I think you have to be absolutely thrilled with how the portal cycle has gone so far post-spring.
Yeah. What you look at now is a defensive line group, and we saw it last year where they rotated and wanted to play more bodies, but they weren't quite as deep as they wanted to be. And now you look at what Vontrell King-Williams has to work with, and we saw Bobby Jamison Travis come on and have a really good A-Day game. We saw DJ Reed have a really good spring, I thought, and a really good A-Day game. And so you look at those guys, and then a Malik Blockton and a TJ Lindsey are two guys with a bigger body. I think obviously Malik Blockton's already at the 3 technique. I think TJ Lindsey will wind up being a 3 technique too. He's a big kid. So you start talking about those additions to this group, and now you add 2 more older bodies, and it gives you some flexibility. You may be able to keep TJ Lindsey as more of a run stopper defensive end for another year because of these guys that you brought in. Let him get some experience out there with Keldrick Falk and Zykevis Walker, and then kind of transition a little bit more. But no, this was huge. And again, I think it's huge in terms of staying fresh from game 1 to game 13, 14, however many you get to play, but also staying fresh from minute 1 to minute 60. I think those are the things that this really adds a lot of value for.
Christian, I want to ask you as we move in now. We're already in the second week of the portal window here. What other moves do you see coming? Maybe just position wise, maybe not specific players, but who are some other guys that you've kind of got your eye on? As they've done a good job already getting some guys in the boat here. Who are some guys you've got your eye on the rest of this weekend and moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of thinking about it earlier today. It's kind of similar to how basketball is right now, where they can kind of slow down a little bit, take more of a big picture look, take their time with the remaining roster spots. They're not in a huge crunch necessarily to get these guys in. The defensive linemen they were, and they went out and got those 3. So they've got them. Now the one remaining position where you're really looking to add one more guy is at wide receiver. Keandre Lambert-Smith is the big one there. He visited over the weekend, also hit Texas A&M this past weekend, set to hit maybe Colorado this week, is supposed to hit USC this weekend. So he's the main one. There's the wide receiver from Houston as well, Sammy Brown, that Auburn has been in contact with and is trying to get in for a visit. Remains to be seen if that'll actually happen. So receiver is the big one. At Buck linebacker, where they just got Kieron Crawford, Nigel Kelly from Miami is a name that we've been tracking. Had a visit set up. That visit is, I would probably tab as doubtful after Auburn got Kieron Crawford. I think they're probably done there at the Buck linebacker position, but don't quote me on that. That's not finalized quite yet. DB, we've been monitoring Traquan Fagans, the former USC and Alabama defensive back, but we've noted multiple times on the board that's not a guy that we think Auburn will go after, at least heavily, and at least as of right now. The thing with the portal is it's always so fluid. If you have 2 guys jump in the portal unexpectedly or something like that, then all of a sudden everything changes. We're recording this on Monday, April 22nd. Portal closes a week from Tuesday on April 30th, I believe at midnight. So there's still a week to go in terms of Auburn's roster changing with current guys and the attrition, and that can impact things. But as I said at the beginning, now Auburn can slow down a little bit. Coaches are allowed to get out on the road. They can hit the road a little bit more, put a little bit more focus back on high school recruiting, and then look to fill those last couple of spots in the transfer portal.
Yes, you already kind of touched on it there, but a couple live comments from YouTube that I was wanting to get into. Bill asked about getting a quarterback from the portal, and Kyle asked about any chance of Jaden Rashada. I think we sort of feel the same way right now, that it's pretty doubtful that Auburn will go in that direction. We'll see if anything sort of synthesizes from Rashada's side of things. But Christian, I know you and I were talking the other day. It doesn't seem like that's a visit that will come to fruition, but we'll see. But our current standpoint right now is still that it's probably doubtful Auburn gets a quarterback in the portal.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very surprised because as of right now, with a week still to go in the portal, none of Auburn's current quarterbacks have expressed any desire to enter the transfer portal. Obviously Peyton Thorne was going to stick around, but then you were kind of watching Holden Geriner, maybe Hank Brown. You were kind of looking at those two guys and saying, maybe there's a slight chance they'll enter the portal. And I guess technically there still is with a week to go, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen, at least as of right now. So if that doesn't happen, Auburn was never going to go get a fifth quarterback, and don't expect that to happen as of now.
Yeah, I think the other thing you mentioned about kind of taking it slow, I think you wait because is this one of those situations where if you were to go, hey, we're going to go pursue a guy, then you might lose one of your quarterbacks or maybe two of your quarterbacks. And then if you don't get that guy, then you forced yourself to go get a guy anyway. And so a lot of it is, you're right, hey, take a deep breath. I think they feel good about the quarterback group coming out of the spring and some of the progress, especially the progress they made with Peyton Thorne. And so I think for them, it's still one of those things where you're always looking, but I don't know if you're always pursuing. And I think those are two different things. You can always look, but doesn't mean you're always going out and actively pursuing somebody.
Yeah, I mean, you and I were talking about it, Christian, like based on what Freeze has done at quarterback so far, is it out of the question to just say, we really, really like this guy, and we think we can bring him in and he can do some good stuff for us? Absolutely not, because they've kind of changed their tune a couple times already, even over the past year. But now it's getting late. It's getting late in the process. You're getting to the point where you don't want to just rehash what happened last year with Peyton Thorne. It sort of made sense in that first portal window, the shopping that they did on quarterbacks, but don't expect that to be the case. So, like Christian said, it'll kind of be slowed down from here on out. And so we'll
thankfully.
Yeah, I know you're grateful for that, but we'll be surveying things. Same thing on the basketball side. Visitors here and there, targets here and there, but it is nowhere near as pressing as it was in the early stages. So if y'all are ready, we will get rolling then. I do not have the little NFL draft music queued up. I think I said that last year that I would do that for this year, and then of course I didn't.
Well, you've also lost the past couple of years, and you've made that joke the past couple of years, so I guess we'll just keep rolling with it.
That's brutal. Yeah, maybe we should hand over the reins of commissioner. I'm gonna start getting booed when I come to the stage. So anyway, so the teams here, I don't think I went over that. So basically, the way we decided to do it last year, the simplest way would be everybody drafts quarterback, got to have a running back, 2 pass catchers. So obviously, like Rivaldo Fairweather is going to be included in there. So, but you could choose any tight end you want. So two pass catchers, 2 offensive linemen, 2 defensive linemen, 1 pass rusher. So he's got to come from that buck position there. 1 linebacker and then 2 defensive backs. So however you see fit of that filling out your roster. And like Jason said today, like giving you the best chance of winning. So maybe one of us should just pick the fan favorites if we know that that's what's on the table here. But Christian, you are our returning champion, and you had some interesting things to say before we got rolling about the number 1 pick. We'll let the dramatics play out here. I'm interested to see what you got going on here at number 1 overall.
Yeah, I'm taking an alternate to the way the rosters are set up. I'm going to be taking Towns Magoo to lead the way, actually, at kicker. I'm just kidding. Although Towns would be a great pick to have on the team. That's an automatic 3 points.
We should have had like specialists like Oscar, Towns, and Alex.
Honestly, that's three good ones. You could get away with either one of those guys, and you'd be pretty happy. But no, I'm going to take. It's a tough situation. You either want to get your quarterback here in the first round, and that would be Peyton Thorne. You want to get kind of the starter or presumed starter, or you want to take who you view as maybe the most talented guy on the team. And that's the route I'm going to go, because I feel like if I have this guy, no matter the quarterback I have, things will be able to work out. So I'm going to take Cam Coleman with the first overall pick. Feel pretty good about that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, you feel good about the best offensive recruit.
Yeah, it's kind of like taking UConn with like the first pick in a March Madness draft. You feel pretty good about it.
All right. Well, there he goes off my board. But all right, yeah. So Christian, for our visual viewers here, Christian will be keeping track of it. This is not the best format for either audio only or visual only, so I apologize for that. We'll do our best of
it's good for written content, which you can find at auburnundercover.com.
Yeah, we can recap it at the end.
Yes, we will do our best. So Jason, moving on to you, and we will now get rolling with our snake draft.
Yeah, I'm going with Peyton Thorne. I think you look at the addition of Cam Coleman and some of the things they put in place. And I feel like this is a guy that's coming off a good spring. And I think you look at the quarterback position as a guy that when he's had the pieces around him has played really well. And so I think we see a much more comfortable Peyton Thorne. And so I'm going with him as my first pick.
Okay, well, it's not that I didn't expect that. Of course, I expected those two guys. It puts me in a weird position offensively. So I feel like I need to load up with defense here. So I'll get the next two. I'm really between these two guys, but I am going to take Keldrick Falk off the board. I just think in terms of a defensive presence, he will be at my D line spot, so he's not my pass rusher. He's going to be a defensive lineman. I just think that gives me the best anchor. I think Jason took Marcus Harris really high last year, and that was a really good pick. Obviously, he ended up having a really good season. And then to secure myself a good pass catcher, I'm going to get Rivaldo Fairweather off the board too. Obviously, Auburn's top returning guy in every category. Obviously, not a wide receiver, but a guy who, look, he told us in the spring. He said, he say 5 times as many in terms of his production, or maybe it was just twice.
I think it was double. Yeah.
He had a good season, but he felt like he left a lot on the table. Obviously, a super athletic guy, and so his rapport there with Peyton Thorne in year 2 will be fun to watch. And so now we will snake it on back the other way to Jason.
If I take Peyton Thorne, I've got to go Sam Jackson. I've got to go high school teammates, connect him back again. I think he's going to have a monster impact on this wide receiver group. We saw it even in the yellow jersey, even in the spring game. He was a guy that made some plays. I think he's going to have a huge impact on this offense. And so I'm going with Sam Jackson.
Interesting. That is not the pick that I was expecting, but I do like the pick. Okay, first pick, I'm going to go with Jalen McLeod as my pass rusher there. I think he's just one of Auburn's more talented players overall. I think he can easily play himself into the NFL draft next year, maybe like in the round 3 to 5 range. I think he can get up to that. I think he's really good. That was an incredible find for Auburn out of the spring portal last year. You don't really find those guys super often. Interesting situation here. I'm almost tempted to go with another wide receiver, but I'm not going to. I'll go with Eugene Asante. I'll get a leader on the defensive side, a good quality linebacker that can kind of do it all. I'll go with Eugene.
All right. So we will now snake it back, right?
Yep. I get it. I get it again. And, it's interesting. I haven't gone the first 2 offense. Could jump to defense, but I'm going to go with a guy that I think is one of the best players on this roster, and I'm going with Connor Lew. I'm going really early. What I think is a future NFL offensive lineman at the center position for Auburn. And so I'm going to solidify you say, hey, you better be strong in the middle. So I'm going quarterback and going Connor Lew with my third pick.
Yeah, it's not how you spell Connor's name, Christian, but that's all right.
Wait, did I misspell it?
I think it's with an O at the end.
It's been a long couple days. That's on me, Connor. Hand up accountability. That's on me.
Yeah, and I'm sure Connor's tuned in on a Monday night at 9:01 p.m.
I know he is.
Yeah. Okay. So y'all catch me if I ever get off in terms of the order here. But so I've got 2 in a row now. I want Kyan Lee. I want him. Very, very high up for me individually. We kind of saw it in the spring. Like Keontae Scott is obviously going to be at corner. Colton Hood is a guy who obviously came up really highly in the spring there as well and got plenty of first team reps. But like the battles between Kyan Lee and I wish we could have just gotten like a every practice ISO cam on just Cam Coleman versus Kyan Lee. I mean, every time we saw them go up to battle, it was obviously it's a matchup just dripping with talent. And he's going to be that guy for them this year. Like Keontae, is he a better, more well-rounded defensive back because he's more experienced? Maybe. But just pure talent. I mean, Kyan Lee he does not look like a second-year player. And I'm going to take him as my lockdown corner here. Let's see. So let me swipe off Connor Lew. Really interesting here. Yeah, I'm tempted with you, Christian. I'm looking at like wide receivers, trying to trying to get somebody good off the board. The quarterback thing will be interesting. I wonder how far that'll fall. You know what? I'm going to stay there. I'm going to double up on defensive backs and get who I think are the two kind of separators at DB. I'll take Keontae as well because he can play nickel. Not that that really matters in this situation, but I'm just going to grab what I think are the two best DBs and kind of fill in from there. Like I mentioned, Keontae, I'm really interested to see what he does at that spot this year because he was obviously really good at nickel, but we'll see what he brings to the table there. So I'll take Auburn's two starting cornerbacks off the board, and so we will head back the other way.
I'm going to go defense for the first time and take Dorian Mosi. Heard a lot about him, that leader, middle linebacker, kind of one of those guys, and I think he's a guy that's going to have a really big impact on the defense. And so I'm going to go with the Duke transfer as my first defensive guy.
Okay.
Mosey, by the way, everybody, not Mousy. We discovered in the spring.
I think it's Mausi, I believe.
Yeah, it's Mausi. Yep.
What did I say? That's what I said.
Close.
I don't think so.
I
think you're a little off.
I wanted to pronounce it Mousy when he like the animal.
Yeah.
And we learned that is not the case.
Well, Nathan, that's because you're an idiot. But
whoa.
Anyways, with back-to-back picks here. Look, tensions get high when you're drafting. Picks go. I was hoping I'd be able to get a DB. Not feeling great about where things stand there. I think I'm going to double up. I'm going to double up on the O-line here, I think. I'm going to go Percy Lewis and Dylan Wade, and I'm going to shore up my O-line there. I feel pretty good about those two, I think. Connor Lew would have been my first O-line pick, so I'll go with the other two there.
Yeah, lots of good O-linemen off the board.
All right. I get another shot. I think I'm going to finish off my pass catchers and go Robert Lewis. And so I get my quarterback pass catchers are done. And so I feel good about adding the two transfer additions to my wide receiver group.
All of us not touching running back, I think, speaks to I think it speaks to what we think of Damari Alston and Jeremiah Cobb, honestly.
Right.
I don't think it says as much about Jarquez as it does what we think about a healthy Damari Alston. I think it says a lot about them. If you can't tell, I'm looking at running back right now and considering making that pick. I feel like I just need to go straight defense now because my O-line is a little bit shot. I didn't take the top quarterback here. Okay, so I can get two in a row here. I'm gonna go with you know what? Let me take the man of the day. I'm gonna take Isaiah Rakes on the defensive line as my D lineman there to pair with Keldrick Falk. I also really like Bobby Travis here, but I'm gonna go with Rakes as we talked about him toward the beginning. SEC production is nice. Looking back at it today, guys, when I wrote about him a little bit, just a lot of experience playing in a lot of games there. When DJ Durkin was his coordinator last year, he played in every game and played a pretty substantial role. He's not a starter, quote unquote, but a guy who had his best college season last year. And that was a really talented A&M defensive front, front seven, like they always are. He had the third best run defense grade on that team. And that was a team with that's a bunch of dudes on that team. And so I think he's going to give Auburn a lot there. I'm interested to see, like Christian pointed out, he's just a massive dude, absolutely massive. Especially those pictures of USC spring practice. It's wow, that is an absolutely massive human being. And so we'll see how he fits there. That nose tackle spot's really interesting because you have them two. You have Jason Jones as well. You have Trill Carter is the other one I'm mentioning, and then Bobby Travis who can kind of kick over there. And so what they choose to do with that personnel will be interesting. I'm rambling here, of course, as I'm trying to think. If you can't tell, I feel like I should close out actually and try to get the most talent I can at wide receiver. I'm going to take Perry Thompson as my other pass catcher. You get kind of the grizzled, veteran, reliable, you know what you got with Rivaldo, and then somebody who literally we have not seen in an Auburn uniform yet because he'll be a summer enrollee in Perry Thompson. So somebody that shouldn't be forgot about. He was a 5-star. Like Cam Coleman's really good, but Perry Thompson also was almost an all-everything type high school receiver. So I will take him to close out my pass catcher group there.
I'm going to go back defense, and I'm going to go with Jaron Thompson, the Texas safety. DB safety, could play nickel. I think he's going to play all over the field. I think he's going to have a big impact on this team. So it gives me a guy that was in the spring, going to be one of the leaders of that defense. And so I'm going to go with Jaron Thompson there.
Jason, I'm glad you took Jaron Thompson because I was extremely torn between him and Champ Anthony, and that
was probably the two guys I was.
And that answers the question for me. So I'm going to take Champ Anthony. That's the first DB that I've taken. He's a guy that this spring emerged as the starting nickel, which he kind of reminds me a little bit, not necessarily a similar story, but he reminds me of Eugene Asante dating back to last year in fall camp, where we kept hearing Eugene Asante's name early in fall camp, and we were kind of like, what is going on? This is not a guy that we would have remotely had near the top of our list of guys that we expected a breakout from. And sure enough, he did. Champ Anthony, kind of the same way. Not a guy that I don't think anyone thought would be a starter necessarily. We thought he'd be a contributor, and we saw that a little bit when he first came in from JUCO last year. But not a guy that I don't think any of us necessarily expected to be a starter. So get him. And then I'm going to get, this is my first D-line edition. I thought I had one previously, but that's McLeod. I'll take Philip Bleedy, the Indiana transfer, a guy that people are really high on. I was talking about earlier in the show, just chatting with Keldrick Falk real quick. He said Philip Bleedy might be his favorite addition that they've gotten of the three guys so far. He thinks that he really complements the defensive line really well. So I'll go ahead and get him.
I was looking today, Bleedy, you were talking about how like 3-tech, more traditional kind of guy he is, Jason. He has the exact, I was looking at him and like watching a little bit of him, like he kind of reminds me of Marcus, the way he can like move around and eat space, but at the same time be a little bit agile. Seems like he's just kind of in the right spot. He has the exact same measurables as Marcus Harris did coming over. So like that is a guy, obviously he's not going to be, don't think he's going to be Marcus Harris, but just saying, Auburn fans to prepare for the type of player he is. I think his play style will kind of remind you of Marcus.
Yeah. I guess it's me now, right? Because I'm kind of in between every time y'all pick up. I'm going to go with the latest addition. I'm going to go with Kieron Crawford, pass rush. I think that would be a good one to give me somebody at every level of the defense. And so I'm going to go with Kieron Crawford there as my pass rusher out of this group.
Yeah, I'll make a couple here and then I'll refresh because we're actually kind of flying through this time around. And I'll refresh our teams as we get close to the end here. I want to take Jeremiah Wright now, take an offensive lineman. Like I said, I think there's I think the first two guys, there's a pretty big gap. Like I had Dylan Wade and Connor Liu, I think kind of like a cut above everybody else. But Jeremiah Wright, look, I thought it was really interesting in the spring. I hadn't even thought about it. Like this was the first spring that he had fully healthy on Auburn's offensive line. His first spring at Auburn on the offensive line, or excuse me, once he was on the defensive line is when he tore his ACL. He was a standout player. And then he just kept having injuries, and then last year kind of got stepped back by that as well. And so he felt really confident in that this season. He admitted that he's a guy who has to kind of strafe away from just being that pure mauler. He said he kind of had those conversations with Jake Thornton this offseason about diversifying his game. And so it looks like he's going to be a starter for Auburn at guard. So I'll take Jeremiah Wright off the board. And then I think I'll probably go ahead and get Jarquez Hunter. I don't know if a healthy Damari Alston isn't a more explosive player than Jarquez, but it's just tough to go against your top returning rusher. A guy who Auburn was obviously very, very excited to get back this season, brings obviously a ton of production back. And a guy who's done it for this team for a long time. He's been a productive player for them now 3 seasons, going back to his true freshman year. And so before we go back to Jason, we'll bring it up to speed. We're almost done. But my team here, my two pass catchers are Rivaldo and Perry Thompson. Jeremiah Wright on the offensive line. D lineman Keldrick Falk and Isaiah Rakes. And then two DBs, Kyan Lee and Keontae Scott. And then Christian, if you want to bring up Jason's team and then your team, I can just kind of run through those. Jason has Peyton Thorne at quarterback. He has Sam Jackson and Robert Lewis, the two receivers who had really good springs along the offensive line. Connor Liu. On the defense, he has Kieran Crawford, the new pass rusher who just committed today from Arkansas State and signed. Dorian Mosey from Duke there at linebacker. And then Jaron Bug Thompson at safety.
Someone in the comments brought up the Jason's built-in Yale transfer team, which outside of Connor Liu, they all have transferred into Auburn.
I just thought about that when I was looking at it. I didn't recognize it. So,
well, as you wrote in a story this week, Jason, like there's not necessarily a ton of meat on the bone in terms of players who were here a couple years ago.
I think today with the news that Wesley Steiner will enter the portal, I think we're down to 18 players on this roster as scholarship players that were not brought in by Hugh Freeze and this staff. So there's not many of those guys left.
So looking at here at Christian's team, he went for the big splash, number 1 overall, Cam Coleman. He's obviously just trying to get votes from the fans, but that's okay.
That's how you win.
Yeah. Percy Lewis and Dylan Wade, really good offensive line. Jalen McLeod and Eugene Asante there on defense. And then Philip Bleedy on defense as well, the Indiana transfer, and then Champ Anthony at DB. So Jason, we will go back to you. I think we are getting pretty close to the end here.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish off my offensive line and go with Tutal, Xavier and Tutal Miller, and finish off my offensive line group. I thought, settled in at right tackle. Had a year to kind of develop. I think now with a summer to get bigger and stronger and kind of settle in, I think he's a guy that's going to have a really big jump. So that'll finish off my offensive line group with him.
Ooh, let's see. We need 2 linebackers, correct?
One linebacker, 1 pass rusher. So you're already. You
okay,
just need.
Okay, I'm good. Never mind.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Well, then I will go. Are we counting Amaris Williams as a D lineman or as a pass rusher?
I'd count him as a buck, but that's just me.
Okay. Never mind then.
But
I think he can be a defensive end. I think it's fine.
He can play in. You can put him there.
Yeah.
Okay.
He'll play there.
Wow, it's really between him or Bobby Travis as my second D lineman. I really like Bobby Travis and how he's taken a step forward. Because I already have Bleedy as more of, I mean, this is all fake anyway, but because I have Bleedy as more of an interior guy, I'll take Amaris Williams out there on the outside. And then I'll finish off my secondary with Caleb Wooden would make a little bit more sense, and he's played a little bit more, and I think he'll be the starter. But I'm going to take Sylvester Smith. I like the fire that he brings. I love how he is in practice, how competitive he is. He is a guy that he's just fiery out there. And I love that in a DB. I really like what he brings. So I'm going to take him with Champ Anthony. Those are both really fiery guys. Champ Anthony loves to trash talk out there in practice.
Yeah, being like he's been so interesting to see like his emergence as a leader because he's kind of like a soft-spoken guy from that perspective. But then once practice gets started, there's definitely no holds barred. So I guess now back to Jason, and then I'll get 2 in a row.
Yeah, I'm going to go with my first true defensive lineman, and I'm going to go with Bobby Jameson Travis. I've been a kind of a believer, and I saw it. And I kind of compared his path a little bit to Nick Fairley. Now I don't know that he'll get to that level. Very few have, but I thought we saw at the end of spring the first signs of him getting to that, and the way his body looks different. I think with an entire summer, he's a guy that has a chance to really emerge as they get into the season. So I'm going to go with Bobby Travis.
Dukes said on the Instagram live stream that we definitely have boy band potential.
I don't think so.
I wish that comment would have popped up here.
Maybe.
We miss you, Dukes.
I don't know if he's on anymore. That was a few minutes ago. We currently have a whole 2 people on Instagram, so shout out to those people. Okay, so 2 in a row here. I think I'm in a position where like I don't think I'm I think everyone I have left to pick, you guys have picked all of them. So, like, I don't think I have any competition here. I think.
You and I don't have a quarterback.
Okay, well, that's a good point. Thanks for helping out my process here.
You're welcome.
Man, I think that also goes to show what we think of the backup quarterback spot too. Like,
I think it's very even.
I don't know. Like, it could be anybody. I'm going to go. So I will go quarterback. I'm going to take your advice from earlier today, Jason, and try to win over the fans. I'm going to go with Hank the Tank. I'm going to go with Hank Brown. He, who knows? Who knows who's going to be the backup? I think Walker White has probably the most potential, but I mean, Hank showed his stuff to Auburn fans. He is always going to be a guy who's going to be remembered regardless of what happens with his career. He's going to be a guy who's remembered very fondly by Auburn fans for just stepping into that bowl game and just slinging it. Had a decent spring. He was fine. He's going to be a part of that competition there in the preseason. So why not? I'll go ahead and I'll get Hank Brown off the board to throw to Rivaldo and Perry Thompson, and then I'll close out here. I guess I've got no competition. Like I said, I didn't take a Buck. I was going to take a Morris. So thanks a lot, Christian.
You're welcome.
I will just take Jamonte Waller then as the other. Just ho hum like a fringe 5-star guy. That's the position Auburn's in now, though. You're like, these guys are kind of down the depth chart a little bit. We'll see if they play, and they're like top 50 overall recruits. So they're in a good spot with the talent along the defensive line. So I'll get my quarterback and my pass rusher there.
Yeah, I'll go get my running back now. I'm gonna go to Damari Austin. I love Jeremiah Cobb, but I just have a feeling that Damari Austin's going to have a much bigger part of the offense. So I'm in the spring. We've seen him make plays, and so I'm going to get my running back there with Damari Austin.
Let's see. I know I need a running back and a quarterback, but I think I'm missing a third position. This is bad podcasting. Yeah, I'm missing another pass catcher. Okay, so I have 3 guys still left. Okay, well, I don't have competition for any of those, so it doesn't matter what order I go in then. I mean, I'll take Jeremiah Cobb, obviously. He will be my running back. Quarterback, I really like Holden. I really like his arm talent. But I've kind of built a young team already now with Jeremiah Cobb and with Cam Coleman and Amaris Williams and Sylvester Smith. So let the kids have fun out there, and I'll take Walker White. So I'll go Jeremiah Cobb and Walker White. Nathan, like you said, I think it was you that just said it. I don't know. It's late, but kind of the highest potential in that room. So I'll take the kid, and we'll see where it leads us.
Yeah, I think I have 2 spots left. I think I have a DB and a defensive lineman, I believe. And so I mean, you're right. There's a lot. The good thing about the defensive back room is there's a lot of options when you start talking about that room. I mean, there's so many players and so many guys that we haven't talked about, we haven't gone after. And so I've been kind of back and forth a little bit. There's been some scuttlebutt that Colton Hood and kind of what he was going to do. He was so good this spring. I'm going to go with Colton Hood here. I think he's a guy that is a playmaker, was a playmaker, and so we'll go with Colton Hood.
All right. Well, I will finish out here. I'll just grab Austin Keys because no competition there at linebacker. I think we probably all were in that camp of looking at him, Asante, or Mausi as the linebackers. And then I need a second offensive lineman, guys. And all the starters are now off the board because we needed 6. And so that brings us to the question of your 6th man. And before I pick, I just as a little experiment, as a thought, who would y'all pick off the bench as your first offensive lineman? I already have my guy picked, so this changes.
If it was me, I would pick Tyler Johnson.
Okay, Christian.
I was thinking about Seth Wilfred, and I was thinking about Muskie, but Jason, I love the Tyler Johnson pick. I'd probably go Muskie because I feel confident about what he can do on the inside and at tackle
and outside. Yeah, he probably plays more positions.
But Tyler Johnson, long-term potential, definitely the guy. That's a great. I don't know how I forgot about him. That's a great call there.
Yeah. Not just because Jason said it then. I am going to go with Tyler Johnson. We just can't ignore – I just can't ignore what we keep hearing, what we've been hearing about him for a long time. I go back to, I mean, besides the thing we've heard about him from the coaching staff, besides all those things, like when Percy Lewis visited the Mississippi State transfer, who's going to start at left tackle. He couldn't remember Tyler's name, but he was literally telling us, yeah, they need a guy for a year at left tackle because they've got a kid under me who they think is going to be really, really good, but they need me to come in and kind of fill that gap. And so that's a little window into the conversations that they're having with transfers. They're like, yeah, if you're here for more than 1 year, you're going to have to probably deal with Tyler Johnson at left tackle in the future. So former Texas Tech commit, right, Christian? Or
Yes.
Am I making that up?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so he might, I don't know. We've all been really high on him. Might end up kind of a diamond in the rough guy. So that'll be my second offensive lineman, and I believe that will finish my team up.
Yeah, I think I've got my last pick, and it's a defensive lineman. And this is the spot where we talked about it. I think there's a bunch of guys that are good. I don't know how to figure out to separate that group. And I'm kind of going to take maybe a little bit of a flyer for some, but I feel like that this is kind of a defensive system that might fit a little bit better. I'm going to go Jason Jones. I think this is a system that fits him a little bit better. I saw Jason the other day, and it looks like to me he's probably a little bit more trim. I think he's a guy that has the potential to do some things in this defense. He knows he's going to play. And so I'm going to go with Jason Jones to kind of wrap mine up.
Last one for me, I need another pass catcher to pair with Cam Coleman. As much as Malcolm Simmons is very intriguing to me to continue the trend of putting the kids all together, I'm going to go with Camden Brown because he clearly proved himself this spring. Was a little bit banged up, but not quite as injured as he has been in previous spring practices and fall practices where it really kind of derailed that month of practice for him. And it showed. He had a great spring practice, capped off by A-Day. I think, what was it, Nathan? 3 catches, something like that for 50-ish yards, something like that.
Yeah, he was leading them in receiving at halftime. 3 for 45, 4 for 45, something like that.
Yeah, I think he had a fantastic spring. That's a guy that I've spoken really highly of for years now, kind of waiting to break out a little bit, and hopefully for him, and Auburn fans are hoping that this spring was that, and it seems like that. So while Malcolm Simmons is very intriguing, and this goes away from my picking the young guys trend a little bit, I think it would be a disservice to not take Camden Brown there in the pass catcher spot.
Yep, that's a good one. I think we can all say a guy that we're hoping knocks out those injuries. Just because talking to him at the end of the spring, he was like, I never got injured a single time. He said after the spring game at high school, was not injured once. And so for him to have 3, maybe 4, and I asked him about his hamstring. He said, no, it's the other one. It is not the same hamstring, just re-aggravated. It is literally the opposite hamstring that he injured this time around. So, the tools are there when you look at that guy. Absolutely.
You asked a question. I'll ask one. Who's the guy that wasn't picked, but now that you think back on it, going, somebody missed the boat? Because I have a couple. I got one.
You go first. That's a really good one.
I think Tyler Scott on defense. I think T. Scott's a guy but he is so big. I don't know where he's going to wind up, but I think T. Scott on defense is a guy. And then offensively, we talked about that offensive line group, but we did not talk about almost pulled it on Brandon Frazier at tight end. We saw a little sneak of that last year, and obviously Luke Beal's going to play a ton. Love Luke. He is a vital part of this thing, but when you think about receiving, he probably not going to catch as many balls as some of these other guys, and that's kind of what this is about. Brandon Frazier was a guy for me. Is like, man, I almost felt like he's a guy that's going to have some of those. Heck, even the transfer. Hey, Micah Riley had a huge spring. There's some options at that tight end spot.
That was going to be one of my sneaky pass catcher options. I really like Micah. I know that Auburn loves Micah. He always is spoken of very highly by the coaches and by his fellow players. Feels like he's really close to breaking out. With so many guys in that room, it might be hard for him to fully break out this year, but that's a guy I toyed with it a little bit there. Defensive line wise, DJ Reed is a guy just oozing in potential. Really like him. Also, Trill Carter was better than I thought he would be in the spring, and now he's got some other pieces around him.
No one picked H. Keys, right? I mean,
No, but that's the thing.
He could be your starting defensive tackle. Like,
there's so many options now. That's the thing about this group is that they've given themselves a lot of options on that defensive line. That when you only pick 6 of them, and you start running down the list of guys that weren't picked, and there's at least 6 more. I mean, there's 10 or 12 of those guys now, and so that's a good spot to be in.
J.C. Hart was one that I had like down my board in case it came that way.
I just thought of 2 more. Hey, Caleb Harris. I mean, he was really impressive in the spring. Kinsley Faustin, but T. Love is another one too. I mean, again, secondary is another spot with a bunch of guys.
Yeah. And then I mean, quarterback didn't go off the board as well because we didn't fill all 4 scholarship spots. But I think at running back, I think we definitely think. It's nothing against Brian Matee, he's a good player, but I think we think those because of Cobb's potential too.
Yeah,
I think those 3 are kind of a cut above. If you were to be building a team, of course, none of this is real. We're just doing this for
this is as fake as it gets. That's right.
Absolutely. This is welcome to almost May, everybody. We're entering peak off-season content, but it's also the draft. It's also draft week. It'll be interesting to see where Auburn's guys go this week. I think DJ James probably is going to be the first one off the board, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone falls in love with Jalen Simpson and everything he brings to the table.
I mean, you could say the same thing for Nehemiah Pritchett and his speed as well.
And Marcus.
That's the thing. I think they're guys that, because they're going to be great in the interview room, they'll be great in the interview process. They play hard and they have a skill set. Marcus is a guy that has an interesting skill set because you could play him, 3 technique and probably could play him at defensive end. I really think if they could find a team that's more of a 4-3 team to where he didn't, the 3-4, that's so much length. That's going to be the question for him. But, I'd love watching him play. But you're right, Jalen's a guy for me that could be 2nd round for somebody, and he might get drafted in the 4th round. It all depends on who's there, who's picking, and what they're looking for at that moment. And that's why sometimes it's really random.
Yeah, somebody brought it up on our board, and I thought it was a good point. This week when I posted, or last week I posted about like a mock draft, saying like I thought Gunnar Britton played really well. I'm surprised to not see him. That is a guy I feel like fits the mold of like he just comes off the board late in the 6th round because some team got him, interviewed him, liked how versatile he was, liked his size, and they were like, sure, why not? Like absolutely, somebody like that could come off the board.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Zion Puckett had a great pro day. It was really good. It's harder to think about a secondary safety guy, maybe offensive line. It's a pretty deep offensive line group, but it's also really top heavy in the tackle spot. I think if he was a guy that had maybe solidified himself at tackle more and then played some guard too, probably would have helped him some. But he's going to get a shot, whether it be late in the draft or as a free agent.
It'll be the first draft, most likely, unless a guy like that happens, be the first draft since 2009 where Auburn does not have an offensive player drafted in which they had multiple picks. Very niche stat there that I looked up a while ago. Because obviously like Roger came off. Might have been more than 2 picks, actually. I don't know. Whatever I came up with. Because they're probably not going to have anybody go off the board on offense, but they could have 4 or 5 guys in an all-defense draft. Justin Rogers will probably be the determining player of whether they have 4 versus 5. I think everybody's pretty set on the 4 guys that will be drafted. Marcus could end up being like a 7th round guy. I don't think so. I think I've seen more like 5th, 6th for him, but
yeah,
Justin Rogers is the guy where it's like, okay, this is what'll put him at 5. All right. Well, another successful year in the books, gentlemen. Christian, pull them up real quick if you can, because I just want to.
Yes. So I had to. There's a text limit on these little banners. So some of them don't have positions, but obviously we know the positions.
Yes. So this is Jason's team. I'll just run through real quick. Peyton Thorne, Sam Jackson, Connor Liu, Dorian Moose. That you've cursed me with that name now. Dorian Moose. Robert Lewis, Jaron Thompson, K-Rod Crawford, who's the new edge rusher from Arkansas State. Tutal Miller, Bobby Travis, Damari Alston, Colton Hood, and Jason Jones. And then Christian's team, or this is my team. Keldrick Falk, Rivaldo Fairweather, Kindly, Keontae Scott, Isaiah Rakes, Perry Thompson, Jeremiah Wright, Jarquez Hunter, Hank Brown, Jamonte Waller, Austin Keys, and Tyler Johnson. That is my team. And then closing out here with Christian, Cam Coleman, Jalen McLeod, Eugene Asante. Really, really strong first 3 picks there. Percy Lewis, Dylan Wade. Honestly, first 5 picks were really, really good. Champ Anthony, Philip Bleedy, Sylvester Smith, Amaris Williams, Jeremiah Cobb, Walker White, and Camden Brown. So, like I said, guys, auburnundercover.com. If you just head over to our site as you listen to this here on Tuesday morning, go click on the story, scroll to the bottom. You'll be able to go through our teams again and check them out. But there'll be a little widget at the bottom. You just click whose team you think is best, and then we'll get bragging rights and all that fun stuff. So we appreciate everybody for joining and tuning in. We had like 50 to 60 plus live viewers across a few platforms during this late Monday night show. So it was a good one. I appreciate Christian and Jason for being here, of course. If you guys enjoyed it, leave us a 5-star review. That is the number one thing that helps us out. The bumper music is by Beats by Mordecai. You guys can follow him on Twitter, SoundCloud, and Instagram. Until the next episode, we will catch you guys later. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week.